The meeting was supposed to end. Instead, it became an argument. One stakeholder objected. Most people blame the stakeholder. Great leaders ask, what story created that reaction? In our previous episode, we explored what stakeholders are protecting, their values, their concerns, their identities. But that creates a deeper question. How do those things become resistance? Support? Enthusiasm? Opposition? Why do two stakeholders react completely differently to the same situation? To answer that question, we need to stop looking at stakeholders as positions and start reading them as systems. Let me give you an example. A project team was struggling with a stakeholder. Every meeting felt the same. Questions, objections, delays. More questions, more objections. Eventually, the team reached a conclusion. He's difficult, political, resistant. Case closed. Or so they thought. One project manager wasn't convinced. She kept asking herself, what if we're misunderstanding what we're seeing? Instead of asking, how do we deal with him? She asked, why? Why is he reacting this way? Weeks later, she discovered something. Several years earlier, a major transformation initiative had failed. Budgets exploded, promises were broken, trust disappeared, and his department had paid the price. Suddenly, the resistance looked different. Not reasonable, not unreasonable, just understandable. For the first time, the team stopped seeing a difficult stakeholder and started seeing a human being carrying a memory carrying a fear, and a fear shaping a reaction. Everything changed. Not because the stakeholder changed, because their understanding changed. And that's when the project manager realized something. The reaction was never the real issue. It was a clue, a signal, pointing towards something deeper. Every strong reaction is trying to tell us something. The question is, can we read it? When stakeholders reveal something important, they rarely tell you directly. They reveal it through signals. Signal 1, what they do. Support, resist, question, delay, escalate, avoid. Most people stop here, but this signal only tells you what is happening, not why. Signal 2, what they feel. Fear, pride, frustration, hope, uncertainty. Emotion is a clue, because people rarely react to facts alone. They react to what those facts mean to them. Change the meaning, and you often change the feeling. Signal 3, what they believe. Listen carefully to repeated statements. We've tried this before. Change always creates problems. My team is always forgotten. Beliefs shape perception. Two people can experience the same event and see completely different realities. The event is the same, the reality is not. Signal 4, the story. This is where everything comes together. Behind repeated beliefs, there is often a story about success, failure, trust, authority, change, belonging, identity. Stories that have been repeated so often, they feel like reality itself. When we follow the signals backwards, a pattern begins to emerge. The reaction points to a feeling. The feeling reveals a belief, and the belief often comes from a story that shapes how the stakeholder sees the world, how they interpret events, and how they respond to change. And suddenly, the stakeholder makes sense. The reaction you see is often the last chapter of a story you haven't read yet. And if you only react to the reaction, you miss the story. The next time a stakeholder reacts strongly, don't ask, what's wrong with this person? Ask, what is this reaction trying to tell me? What feeling lies beneath it? What belief is creating that feeling? And what story created that belief? Those questions change everything because they move you from judgment to understanding. Most people try to change stakeholder behavior. Great leaders try to understand the system producing that behavior. Because the reaction you see is often the last chapter of a story you haven't read yet. And if you want to understand the stakeholder, don't focus on the reaction. Try to reconstruct the story that makes that reaction make sense. But this creates a new challenge. If stories shape behavior, how do we influence those stories? How do we help stakeholders see a different future? That's what we'll explore next.
If this changed the way you think about stakeholders, there's more.
Episode 1, The Mask. Episode 2, The Shield. Episode 3, The System. And next, the story shift. Because the difference between managing stakeholders and engaging them often begins with understanding the story behind the behavior. Every behavior tells a story. Every story shapes a reality. And every great engagement begins by learning to read both.